Today marks the end of a presidential race like no other. Tens of millions of Americans have already cast their ballots, but tonight's results are far from certain. Our Washington Bureau Chief Jackson Proskow has been following every step of the way. He joins us now from the U.S. Capitol. Good morning, Jackson. Well, the polls are now open. Let's talk about how the candidates are spending the last day as they look ahead to tonight.
Good morning to you, Anthony. For Joe Biden, he's back to Pennsylvania, heading to his birthplace of Scranton for a brief stop today, then making another stop in Philadelphia, really driving home the message that this is such a critical state. And then he'll be spending tonight back home in Wilmington, Delaware, watching the results come in from the same venue where Democrats held their convention earlier this year. For President Donald Trump, it's an unusual election eve. He'll be watching the results come in from inside the heavily fortified White House, and we can talk more about that in a second. Rarely in modern history has a president spent election eve at the White House. There are 400 invited guests who are coming there. The president had called off plans to hold a victory watch party at the nearby Trump Hotel, all because of COVID-19 restrictions here in Washington, D.C. that prevented any sort of mass gathering. Only one item on the president's schedule for today, and that's stepping out briefly to visit Republican campaign headquarters just across the river in Virginia.
Now, you mentioned the fortified White House. I mean, it really illustrates the anxiety surrounding this election in particular. Talk about that and also just the overall fears of violence and civil unrest as a result.
Late last night, they erected a non-scalable fence outside the White House surrounding the entire block. Some of that fence had been left over from the summer of protest and had never been taken down. But this expanded fence really is an anticipation of potential protests and potential violence. And you're seeing stores and businesses and office buildings throughout Washington completely boarded up. But the thing is, it's not just happening here. It's happening in cities right across the U.S. Major downtown cores, major retail strips in cities from coast to coast are completely boarded up as though there's some sort of hurricane coming. It is, in fact, a political storm that's on the way, and there's real fear that if there's any sort of disputed period in which we don't know a firm result, that there could be some form of violence. In fact, yesterday, in a tweet, the president suggested that no immediate result on Election Day could lead to physical violence, even though in the past there's a long history of it taking longer for results to come in. We should point out that National Guardsmen are on standby in many different states. Here in Washington, D.C., the Department of Justice is sending federal prison correction officials here to help potentially maintain order. These are the same people who were brought in during the summer of protests, those people we saw without any official uniforms or identification that were guarding the White House complex. So certainly a lot of tension here today, Anthony.
Let's talk about the numbers game and the results. How long could this take until we get at least a sense of what is going to be happening 3 months from now?
That is the million-dollar question, and it really depends how this night unfolds. If a state like Florida or Arizona or Georgia or North Carolina makes a decision early on, that could signal either a decisive result if it's leaning toward Joe Biden, or that we're in store for a very long night if those states swing towards President Trump. That's because it would come down to states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, states that say they will not be able to process all of the millions of mail-in ballots they've received by today. Pennsylvania, for example, is saying, hey, they may not have a final result until Friday, perhaps even Monday if it's really, really close. So multiple scenarios here, and I think the bottom line is, historically speaking, there's never actually been a winner formally decided on election night. You'll hear media make projections and declare a winner based on the way states are trending, but the formal, finalized results take days and weeks, and legally speaking, states do have weeks to certify their results as final, to make sure they count all their ballots. And Anthony, we know some contests can take a long time to decide. Back in the 2018 midterms 2 years ago, there were House races that took 12 days to declare a winner because they were so close and it took so long to count absentee ballots.
Look, it's going to be a long day and a long night. We appreciate you joining us for this, and we are grateful for all the reporting that you've done for us. Thank you so much. Jackson Proskow joining us from Washington.